Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I am Spike, and welcome to MMEG 369. And it's been quite a exciting, maybe not so exciting for some of you, what's going on with the world in this coronavirus, quarantine lockdowns in your homes. A lot of just what we considered out of norm situations. And of course, you saw a lot of postings of the photos of so-called hoarding of food, toilet paper, water, all this crazy frenzy, mass hysteria that went on. So let's talk a little bit about the energy that is currently going on with the world and what can we do about this for ourselves. Energy is abundantly everywhere. Just always trust that source, that the energy, whether it's to be positive or negatively charged, are always abundantly surrounding and available. It is most important that through your consciousness and also your intent to direct the energy that you want it flowing through you and around you, you have that power and control. For this massive hysteria, of course, not everybody is on board or enlightened and educated, knowledgeable in regards to the true power they really have as a human being in third density. To be able to raise our awareness up to fourth and fifth density, the enlightenment and the consciousness and our intent, our self-love, all those things are evolved into another level. I challenge and encourage everyone to continuously to refine the self, the self-love, the self-enlightenment, the true connection to the universe, to be able to tap and connect effortlessly to the abundant amount of energy that is available to us on this planet. What I'm going to share with you is some of the things that I've come across through my resources that I've been staying in touch with. And just let me kind of give you a backstory in regards to this. Oh, that's not an earthquake. Those are shock mount, you can see, cameras, of course. Now let's go back to the situation that how I arrived to a lot of the information that I'm sharing with you is, of course, my own research, my own experience, and those type of things. In regards to what I'm about to share with you came from a variety of different sources. Now, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of my last 10 years research and how it came about to fruit to where I'm at today. It started with definitely being aware of ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom, and then it tapped on to, of course, the History Channel's Ancient Alien series. Now, that series talked about stuff that I knew about for many years because I was a follower, and I've already known about the writing of Eric von Däniken and the Chariots of Gods. So those type of things has already been in my mind for many years. I have seen an unidentified flying object, okay, a UFO, which I really do believe was an extraterrestrial craft or other terrestrial craft because due to the nature of how it looked, it was a sphere. It was a clear day in Houston, Texas, and we're talking about probably back in 1981. And I saw it on the horizon of Katy Freeway, I-10, near Bunker Hill. And this gold sphere looked just like a gold ball in the air. I would assume that it's like staring at a blimp or staring at a helicopter that was hovering. As soon as I looked up, it immediately took off 45 degrees up in the air, and it left a white vapor trail that turned into a rainbow. And this all happened as fast as a fraction of a second or so. As soon as I felt something, I looked right at it, it disappeared. It shot up and disappeared. And that's always stayed with me. And it has always kept me to want to dig deeper and follow and find out what's all going on. So through that, in the Ancient Aliens series, start to get deeper into the history of the secret space program. Now, I have several cousins, family members that worked for NASA. And NASA, what I found out, of course, is a private company and not a government company. Of course, what were the agendas of NASA? My father-in-law actually worked on NASA programs as one of the many engineers that was involved in Apollo missions. He actually has physical evidence of things in his house that he was involved in building the Apollo mission. He was also thrown away at the end of the so-called program, and he was very bitter about his involvement with the space program, and as many others that I've known, and as well as I've heard from, that also talks about that they don't really know what they worked on other than maybe a big picture, and then when their so-called project is finished, they were not invited back to do anything else involved anything near the space program. So there's no cluing in on what's all going on. So as I would start to develop my interest in the space program, I ran into much more, I would say, evidence in regards to the situations that happened with Eisenhower signing a treaty with the other terrestrial race. Also the involvement of so-called Heinrich Himmler and the Nazi Party going to Tibet, looking for ancient knowledge, and came away with relations with the other race to develop anti-gravitational devices. So all these things just sounded really far out and incredible to me. But I also recognize too is that there is anti-gravitational patents in a variety of different technological patents, if you will, that is in the patent office or has been squashed known by the government, and they would be leaked occasionally through various different forums, magazines, periodicals, and things of that nature. So I kind of kept tab on it and always questioned this, being somewhat of a, I would say, the interest of, okay, if we have the technology of space and we can actually venture out and go beyond the moon and not having to wait 10 years to send a so-called rover to Mars and things like that, that we actually have the capacity to travel and to go somewhere. Why is it being hidden? Why are we not being told a big picture? So I kept on, that investigative, just for my own purpose, because my quest for knowledge and my understanding of who I am was thirst for information, and it helped me raise my vibration. And I will say, as soon as I started to get involved into frequency and sound vibration and toning, and use it on a daily basis, my so-called consciousness expanded greatly and faster than it ever before. And I start to get so-called paired up and introduced to things that I otherwise probably would not be paying attention to. So one of the things that really was glaring recently that popped up in our vocabulary is Q. Q is supposedly been this so-called name or organization or group that is associated with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and how their agenda and their so-called tasks is to change what's going on today, as he did on his platform saying draining the swamp. Now, of course, I never identify with this group. I have heard from another sources, David Wilcock being the chief leader of this source, of an alliance that has drafted, if you will, Mr. Trump into the leader position to assist on this changing of the guards. Now, this changing of the guards is a cyclical through time on Earth. Supposedly, a solar flash came from the sun, created such surmountable energy that it changed everything, our consciousness, our enlightenment elevations, our existence. And what it did is that in this cycle, it would literally affect everything in its path. And there's no doubt in my mind that I felt different in the recent years than I have ever felt in my research. Now, of course, I can bone that up with experience of it. The more you do, the better you get, just like, playing ball, playing a music instrument, or anything else that would go into this. But now, with this mass hysteria in this so-called coronavirus lockdown, country to country, city to city, and it start to question a variety of different things, timing. Like, one of the things is Bill Gates has resigned from Microsoft board. That is just crazy to me. Really? How do you step down from something you created at a time of this? What's going on? Okay. So one of the other things that was brought to my attention by the back door of acknowledgement of Q was this National Economic Security and Recovery Act. It's NESARA. And that is also recognized along with the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. So when I start to look deeper into these things, a Global Economic Security and Reformation Act and a Security and Recovery Act, what does all these mean? The information that I read was not mind-blowing, because the things I have learned from the secret space program, the underlying so-called mystics that was tied into the Nazi regime, the turn of the century, when we became the industrialized nation, but Woodrow Wilson, our president at that time, gave away the power of the economics to a private sector called the Federal Reserve. That is one of the biggest sellouts, if you will, in American history to the American people. And yet, it kind of gets hidden in American history. Remember, Woodrow Wilson took away government-backed currency that had, so-called leverage with gold and precious metal, silver, things like that, and basically said, no, we'll take that away. We'll deem that irrelevant, and we will put all currencies and economics into a private company's hand. Now, whoever dreamed that up is still part of the big picture. And that big part of the picture is what the National Economic Security and Recovery Act is about. Please do some reading about this and form your own conclusions, thoughts, and share it with me. You can find me on Twitter, Jeff Spike Wong. Also, you can message me over on Facebook at MMEG369. These are things that needs to be talked about, because from what I understand, the centralization of so-called variety of different cities through infection, quarantines, this virus lockdown into countries, these are all part of a big picture other than the virus protection itself. And the reason why I brought that to the forefront, because it is very puzzling and trivial to look at statistics of other flu viruses, illnesses that cause much more deaths and infected much more human populations throughout the world. And it never created the so-called frenzy and mass hysteria that it did right now. Sure, I understand too that because we are communicated or connected with communication with the internet more so than ever, But at the same time, I also learned that other terrestrials, and this is something that was already brought to my attention decades ago, that other terrestrials are assisting the human race to evolve. But they can't just come in and change it. They will assist. This is not something that just started happening a year ago. This is something that I've read that's been happening for centuries. But the huge timeline that changed what we're about in our contemporary was World War I, World War II, and the crash of Roswell, the H-bomb on Hiroshima. These are things that made such an impact through the universe that created a different energy and mindset to come into our existence. To most people that never done any kind of research, this is all new information. And it just seems like to be made up storybooks and so forth. In the open chapter forward of the book Magic by Aleister Crowley, he talks about a certain energy that has been identified and branded and named that he is very well aware that is manipulative and usable, where 100 years ago it was unheard of. We continuously, always discovering new species, new path, new technology, new strategies. So it is not surprising that as that continue forward, that we are acknowledged and brought knowledge of things that were previously not part of our vocabulary. In the event when this change happens, are you prepared? So that's one of the things that I start to do a lot of research, and my family does a lot of research as well, in regards to what do we do to prepare ourselves when things are being reset and the world will change, when things that we wanted are now coming true. How we like with, a lifestyle that has no boundaries, no debts, no violence, no sexual predators, respect, compassion, empathy, abundance of love, abundance of progress. We all want that. But what is the means of it? How do we achieve that? Most people said, yeah, that sounds all great and everything. But what you're describing is socialism. If we all just got the same thing, that's socialist. I don't want to be socialist. Well, let me just make sure you understand this. Socialism is only bad if you're using the fiat money system, or is driven by financial and economics being the priority. If those things do not exist, if you have technology that you can get anything you want, whether it's food, whether it's clothing, whether it's material goods, whatever it may be, and all you have to do is ask for it, where does money place at that point? Where is economics placed at that point? But your consciousness and your enlightenment in yourself, your ability to love, to influence, to inspire, those things don't change. Those things, if anything, get stronger, gets better because of unification. So what I have learned, and I hear a lot of the top teachers, including folks like Deepak Chopra, at this time of life, at this time of what we're going through on earth, take time out, meditate, breathe deeply, enlighten, learn, bring knowledge to self, learn about self, and understand that it's all going to be great. There's no trick to any of this. Everything that I've said and am saying to you right now exists in the universe. The universe is all-knowing, all great, all self-correcting. I am a vehicle with my consciousness tapping back to the unity to bring this information to you. I love everybody. I give myself to the whole of my experience to be able to come back and share my personal experience to help you to understand your personal experience if that's what this is all about. And I am very honored to have the opportunity to do that. So with much love, as always, be good, be well, meditate, learn, acquire knowledge, have compassion, be passionate about what you do, and be the part of the greater good. And I will see you next podcast.